The dining room felt like a courtroom, and I was the accused. My entire family had assembled for what they dramatically called a serious talk. Dad, Mom, Uncle Henry, Aunt Claire, and my cousins, Lauren and Derek, all gathered to judge my life choices. Madison, Dad began, holding a folded sheet of paper like a prosecutor. We love you, but we can't watch you keep throwing your life away. At 29, I was apparently still young enough for interventions about my future. I sat stiffly in the chair they'd placed dead center in their judgment circle. Dad, I appreciate the concern, but... Let us finish, Mom cut in sharply. We all agreed someone had to say it. I scanned the room, faces that should have trusted me, faces that believed their definition of success was universal. Your cousin Lauren just closed on her 4th rental property, Uncle Henry announced proudly, nodding toward his daughter, who preened like she'd won an Oscar. Real success, Aunt Claire chimed in, and Derek just made partner at his law firm. Real money, real stability. Real stability. Real irony. Madison, you're almost 30, Dad pressed on, glancing at his notes. You live in a tiny apartment most people would call basic. You drive a car older than you, and your wardrobe... He hesitated. Well, it doesn't exactly scream ambition. And you're alone, Mom added softly, as if that sealed the case. No husband, no children, no future plans. What kind of life is that? The kind of life where I'd spent 7 years building a cloud computing platform that Fortune 500 companies were now lining up to license. But to them, I was a failure. They didn't see the beta launches, the angel investors, the NDAs stacked in my email. They only saw the peeling paint of my loft, the 10-year-old Corolla, the thrift store jeans. Be realistic, Dad urged. How many people actually make it in tech? How many startups crash before they even take off? I opened my mouth, but Aunt Claire cut me off. Dreams don't pay bills, Madison. At some point, you need a real job. If only they knew what I was about to announce. I've been in finance for 30 years. I know success, Uncle Henry declared, leaning back like a man delivering gospel. Success is stability, recognition, status. He flicked his hand toward me. What you're doing? This startup thing? That's not success. It's a gamble. A gamble. 7 years of coding marathons, sleepless nights, and pitching to investors. Reduced to a gamble. We have a plan, Mom said, sliding a folder across the table. Your uncle knows people at Summit Bank. Corporate strategy roles. Great pay, benefits, upward mobility. Corporate banking, I repeated, my voice flat. That's your solution? Respectable career, Aunt Claire nodded eagerly. Derek's firm just hired someone for a similar role. Big signing bonus, company car. You could have that too. And Lauren knows a nonprofit director, Dad added. They need someone to manage technology programs. It's meaningful work, a real difference. A real difference. By shelving the platform I'd spent nearly a decade building to revolutionize cloud infrastructure. Most importantly, Mom continued, patting my hand, you need a life that makes sense. You can't spend your 30s like your 20s. What's wrong with my 20s? You isolated yourself, she said. Work over relationships, screens over socializing. Look what everyone else accomplished. I looked. Lauren, buying properties she barely visited, clinging to a marriage built on Instagram photos. Derek, climbing ladders at a firm that skirted ethics every fiscal quarter, and Uncle Henry, measuring worth by square footage and car logos. It's time to be practical, Dad insisted. Your experimental phase is over. Now think about your future. This is my future. No, honey, Mom said softly. This is your fantasy. Your future begins when you stop chasing impossible dreams and build something real. Impossible dreams. If only they knew Helix Cloud was finalizing its acquisition today. If only they knew those impossible dreams had just been valued at $4,800,000,000, 0 cents. We want what's best for you, Derek chimed in. We're family. What's best, apparently, was giving up everything to shuffle spreadsheets. What's best, Uncle Henry said firmly, is compromise. You can't change the world and have security. You have to choose. Why can't I have both? Because that's not how the world works, Dad concluded. If only he knew how wrong he was. The world works through practical decisions and realistic expectations, Dad declared. That's when the television interrupted. The background news had been humming all afternoon, mostly ignored, until the anchor's urgent voice cut through the room. This is CNBC with breaking news from Wall Street, the reporter announced. My pulse spiked. Today was IPO day, the day 7 years of secrecy would go public. Tech startup Helix Cloud goes public at a $4,800,000,000 0 cents valuation, making founder Madison Cole. The words rang out into sudden silence. I watched my family's faces morph in real time: confusion, disbelief, shock. The youngest woman to take a cloud infrastructure company public this decade, the anchor continued. And unlike past flukes, Helix Cloud already boasts major Fortune 500 clients and recurring revenue. That's right. Dad's jaw slackened. Mom went ghost white. Uncle Henry stared like the TV had started speaking Martian. Cole, who retains a controlling 64% stake, is now worth an estimated $3,100,000,000, 0 cents, making her one of the richest self-made women under 35. The room was so quiet I could hear the wall clock tick. My heartbeat roared in my ears. Helix Cloud's proprietary architecture for real-time enterprise data optimization has disrupted the industry, drawing comparisons to early AWS, the anchor added. Is that our Madison? Aunt Claire whispered. Stock opened at $87, 0 cents per share, climbing past $120, 0 cents in the first hour, suggesting analysts view the IPO valuation as conservative, CNBC went on. That's impossible, Derek muttered. But it wasn't impossible. It was 7 years of code, NDAs, and sleepless nights, everything they dismissed as a fantasy. Madison Cole launched Helix Cloud from her loft apartment after leaving a senior role at Oracle, the anchor continued. The company's solutions now underpin operations for 62% of Fortune 100 companies. Dad turned to me, eyes wide with something between awe and fear. Madison, are they talking about you? I nodded. Words wouldn't come. The IPO cements Cole as the youngest female tech billionaire in the U.S. Forbes has confirmed she will be featured on their upcoming Innovators issue. You're a billionaire? Mom whispered. $3,100,000,000, 0 cents, apparently. Chaos erupted. Voices overlapping, questions flying. But your tiny apartment, your old car, those thrift store jeans. How? I raised my hand, calm now. And if you think the shock on their faces was priceless, wait until you hear what I said next. Subscribe now so you don't miss part 2 of this story. Miraculously, silence fell. Maybe because for 7 years I poured every spare dollar into development instead of designer handbags. I cared more about building something real than looking like I was building something real. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, his voice raw, the dreaded question. How do you explain not trusting people who've spent years calling your dream a fantasy? Because every time I tried, you told me to be realistic, I said. Every time I shared my vision, you suggested corporate banking or nonprofit work instead. We didn't know you were succeeding, Mom whispered. I tried telling you, but tech success doesn't look like real estate or law success. It comes with beta launches, patents, and seed rounds, not company cars or six-figure bonuses. Uncle Henry blinked like I'd grown a second head. You're saying, while we thought you were broke, you were building a billion-dollar company? I'm saying while you thought I was wasting my life, I was creating something that could transform the industry. The billions? That's just what the market thinks that work is worth. But your apartment, Lauren sputtered, costs $1,100, 0 cents, instead of $3,500, 0 cents. So I could invest $2,400, 0 cents a month back into the platform. My car cost $9,000, 0 cents, instead of $90,000, 0 cents. So I could hire 2 engineers. My clothes? thrift store fines so I could pay for servers and security, compliance audits. Stunned silence. So you lived like you were broke while you were actually, Derek trailed off. Investing in something bigger than my ego? Yes. Dad sank into a chair. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I was an hour ago, the one you lectured about being practical. The difference is now you know what I was building. You let us believe you were failing, Aunt Claire accused. No, I said evenly. I let you assume appearances equal substance. That's on you. The TV droned on. Helix Cloud reports quarterly revenue of $912 million, 0 cents, serving over 200 Fortune 500 companies with global data infrastructure solutions. $912 million, 0 cents? Uncle Henry whispered. In 1 quarter? Lauren breathed. Looking around, I saw something new in their eyes. Respect. Where doubt used to live. Madison, Dad finally said, voice trembling, we owe you an apology, all of us. Dad, you don't. Yes, I do, he cut in, his voice unsteady. I spent the afternoon telling you to be practical, realistic, like everyone else, and you were already more successful than any of us imagined. Success isn't the point, I said quietly. The point is, I was building something meaningful. Whether it made me rich didn't change the work's value. But it did make you rich, Aunt Claire interjected. It made the work sustainable, I replied. Money's just a tool to scale, hire more engineers, expand infrastructure, innovate faster. Mom was crying now. Honey, I'm so sorry. Sorry for doubting you, for thinking you were wasting your life, for wanting you to fit into our definition of happiness. You wanted me happy and secure, I said gently. Those aren't bad things. But I already was. You just couldn't see it because it didn't match your version of success. The news anchor's voice cut back in. Analysts predict Helix Cloud could hit a $15 billion 0 cents valuation within 3 years as enterprise adoption accelerates. 15 billion? Derek whispered. Helix Cloud's founder announced 30% of profits will fund affordable access to emerging markets, making her not just one of America's youngest billionaires, but a leader in tech philanthropy, the anchor added. 30%? Lauren choked out. I'm making sure cloud access is equitable, I said simply. What's the point of building technology that transforms the world if only the top 1% can use it? Uncle Henry shook his head slowly. I don't understand you. You could live like a queen. Why stay in a loft and give money away? Because I'm living exactly how I want, I said, smiling. Perfect space for me, work I love, and the ability to help people who need it. What more could I want? A husband? Mom asked hopefully. Kids? A social life? I laughed. I'm dating someone. We talk about marriage, when things settle. You're dating someone? Her face brightened. Another tech founder, someone who understands why this matters more than status. Someone who thinks it's awesome that I'd rather change the world than impress people. Why didn't you tell us? Dad murmured. Because every time I mentioned someone, you turned it into a resume review, I said softly. And I'm done living my life like a merger negotiation. Dad's voice cracked. We owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, I whispered. We were scared, Dad admitted, his voice low. Scared you were too smart for your own good, too idealistic, too willing to trade practical security for some big dream. We've seen brilliant people fail because they refuse to compromise. We just wanted to protect you, Mom added, tears streaking her cheeks. Make sure you didn't waste your life chasing something that would never happen. We thought we were helping, Aunt Claire said softly, teaching you how the world works. But we were forcing you into a mold that didn't fit, Uncle Henry finished, shaking his head. Trying to make you successful in ways that made sense to us, when we should have trusted you to succeed in ways that made sense to you. I felt tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying begin to ease. For 7 years, I'd believed I was letting them down by following my own path. It never crossed my mind that they were trying to shield me from heartbreak. I understand why you worried, I said quietly. I understand why my choices looked risky, but I wish you trusted me enough to let me take those risks. We should have, Dad said firmly. We should have believed in the daughter we raised, the one who got through Stanford and MIT on her own drive. Closed. My phone buzzed with nonstop notifications. Word was spreading fast. By tomorrow, my anonymity would be gone. What happens now? Lauren asked. For me, not much changes, I shrugged. Same platform to build, same clients to serve, same mission to make data accessible for everyone, just with a lot more resources now. But you'll be famous, Derek said. Magazine covers, conferences, and I'll still prefer Saturday night's debugging code over cocktail parties, I replied with a smirk. Fame doesn't change who you are, it just changes who thinks they know you. Will you finally move out of that apartment? Mom asked hopefully. Maybe, I said, grinning. I've thought about a bigger space, but not what you're picturing. Something functional, server rooms, testing labs, a creative workspace for my team. Uncle Henry laughed. $3 billion, and you want a bigger lab? Exactly, I said, smiling, because now I can build the perfect one. Mom hesitated. What about us? Does this change how you feel about family? Fair question. Part of me was angry, part hurt, but mostly I was relieved. Relieved I didn't have to hide anymore. I hope this changes things, I said quietly. I hope we can talk about my work without you trying to talk me out of it. I hope you'll trust me to know what's best for my life. We will, Dad replied instantly. From now on, we'll listen more, judge less. Ask better questions too, Mom added, her voice trembling. About your goals, your happiness, not just financial security and status. And we'll support you, Anne Claire promised, even when we don't understand. I looked around at my family. For the first time in years, I saw something new in their eyes. Genuine pride. Not pride in my bank account, but in what I'd built, in the impact it could have on the world. Thank you, I said softly. That's all I've ever wanted. Not for you to understand every detail, but to trust that I have good reasons for what I'm doing. We do trust you, Dad said, and we're proud, so proud. Even if you keep that tiny apartment, Mom teased, wincing slightly. Even if I keep the old car? I grinned. Uncle Henry chuckled. Even if you keep the old car. And the thrift store clothes, Lauren added with a smirk. Though maybe consider something a little nicer now and then. I laughed. I'll think about it. The afternoon light was fading. 3 hours had passed and somehow everything felt different. Not just how they saw me, but how I saw myself. With them. I should go, I said, gathering my things. 100 calls to return, and my team is probably wondering where I am. Your team? Dad repeated, almost in awe. 400 people, according to the news, some of the brightest minds on the planet. And you're their boss? Jason asked. I'm their leader, I corrected gently. There's a difference. My job isn't to tell them what to do, it's to make sure they have what they need to do their best work. Mom caught my arm before I left. We have years to make up for, years of not believing in you. How do we start? Visit the lab, I said after a moment. Not to judge, just to see what we're building, understand why it matters. Her eyes softened. We'd love that. And maybe, I added, grinning, stop trying to set me up with finance guys. What's wrong with finance guys? Aunt Claire protested. Other than the one who spent an entire dinner telling me cloud computing was a fad, I shot back. The room erupted in laughter, the first genuine laughter we'd shared in years. At the door, Dad called after me. Madison? Yeah. Next Sunday, will you tell us how your platform actually works? I want to understand. I smiled. I'd love to. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to family dinner. What would you have done in my place? Would you have kept fighting for your dream even when everyone doubted you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your advice for anyone chasing something big. And if you believe in supporting people who take risks for what matters, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter of my journey.